You're listening to 90.9 FM, WMPG Gorham, Portland, Southern Maine Community Radio. This is radio from the University of Southern Maine, as always. My name is DGBC. I also go by Brickmason, and you're listening to Joy Noise. Here at the station, my show is every Sunday night for 2 hours from 7 to 9 p.m. Pretty soon, I'm swapping to 1 hour because 2 hours every single week is pretty exhausting for every week of my life. But for now, Joy Noise is a show where I play music of all different genres. Every week, I tend to have kind of different genres in mind when I make these shows. I've been interviewing artists recently. It's been a lot of fun to talk about vaporwave, which is a subgenre of electronic music, which has really grown prominence quite a bit since 2011, kind of slowly over time, building up more and more and more. And tonight, I'm interviewing an artist by the name of VANGOE. Met him at the tape swap at Econ 3 down in Brooklyn, but I knew him far before then from his releases, which we're going to talk about for this show. VANGOE, welcome to the show.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be on here. My name is VANGOE, and I am a vaporwave, breakcore, dream pop, indie, internet music hodgepodge artist. And I've released under my debut Loser's Landslide under Pacific Plaza Records, and it has been a joy to be a part of this community.
So how do you describe your music? You said dream pop, you said breakcore. That's the tags used on Bandcamp, and that's how I would describe your music. But for people listening in who don't quite know what that means, if you're listening to a VANGOE song, if you're listening to Loser's Landslide, your first album that you released, how would you describe your sound?
So I would describe it as kind of more analog, but also digital, in a sense, and it's very dreamy, in a sense, and it's supposed to be big. It's very big, but at the same time, it's trying to invoke a sense of nostalgia, and you can feel that in the instrumentation, and sometimes even the lyrics of each track. There's a wide range of emotion being portrayed throughout the project, coming from the highs of a first love to the very deep lows of a breakup. So, it's a very diverse and sonically emotional album.
To start with, I think we'll talk about the lyrics part of what you just said. You are an enigma. You are what's that word that, like, yin and yang, like if something is diametrically opposed? You wear a mask. Everywhere you go, you wear a mask. Your releases, you wear a mask, and yet you're the only vaporwave artist that I know of, aside from Death's Dynamic Shroud, that has pretty much sang on every track that you've done, which is a very vulnerable thing to do, and yet you hide your identity. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is a very vulnerable thing to do, and you can tell that I'm fairly vulnerable just by hearing my vocal performances. But this project is very much a love letter to Esprit / George Clanton, and you can tell in the instrumentation, even by some of the instruments and digital instruments I've been using throughout the album. But yeah, it's very inspired by his vocal performances on 100% Electronica and his instrumentation on 200% Electronica, because those are some of the most influential albums that have really made me want to take music seriously. You can definitely tell the quite obvious influence, but in a way, I'm definitely trying to take my inspiration and mold it into something entirely new.
Before we go further, what the heck is vaporwave? How do you? Everyone has their own kind of description of it. You've used the word nostalgia already, which everyone kind of has to use that word. But what is vaporwave, and how do you describe it?
Vaporwave, at least to me, is a community of very loving and thoughtful artists, but vaporwave as a genre can be described as many things. There are a lot of vapor purists out there, and there are a lot of losers who like to argue on Twitter. But vaporwave is pretty much internet subculture, in a sonic sense, that, like I said previously, has a sense of deep nostalgia and yearning for the past, and that can be displayed through the various samples that artists such as Luxury Elite and Esprit, as mentioned before, have used in their tracks. But it can also be entirely original. via, FM Skyline, Autograph,
Mhm.
Windows 96. So, um, yeah, it is in a sense yearning for the past.
That was the vapor drama, which is a term if no one knows this, listening here in Portland, Maine. But like the vapor drama immediately prior to Econ 3 was surrounding what is and what is not vaporwave, especially with the fact that Econ 3, there were three stages. The left stage was the quote unquote like not vapor stage. This was all the vapor drama. You know what I mean?
Mm,
This was like your 100% electronica artists, like your bigger names that are more commercially successful, I want to say. Center stage and then right stage. There were three stages total. On your right stage, on your center stage, do you recall who those artists were that people hands down say like that's vaporwave? Was that more of your like Saint Pepsi, I want to say, and
yeah, a lot of people were really harkening on Luxury Elite and St. Pepsi as pure vapor. There was a lot of useless drama. When there is usual vapor drama on Twitter, it's coming from the same couple artists that like to cause drama and negative emotion and discourse for no reason. And yeah, they're just overall negative people, not cool to be around. I interacted with a few of them at the tape swap even. Yeah, it was just a very uncomfortable experience being around them. I would talk more about it, but I don't want to cause useless Twitter drama.
yeah. Like you said though, this community overwhelmingly is just like warm, loving people. Like it feels very good. Very
Exactly.
much the fact that your definition of vaporwave includes the phrase like a community. I
Mhm.
really like that a lot. Tape swap is incredible. Twitter is a lot of fun. Discord's fun. Everyone so far has been really amazing to talk to and to meet. But that's a really good, I think, insight, I think, into like vaporwave and a bit of the drama about it. So yeah, I think before we keep going, I want to focus on your release, but just before that, and you've mentioned a bunch of them, but favorite labels in the scene
Yeah.
or favorite artists in the scene or favorite releases in the scene. I'll give you some freedom to talk about whichever ones. This can be just general interests and then things that directly, drive your passions and drive your music.
Yeah, for sure. As per labels that I've worked with or have seen constant amazing output from, that would be Pacific Plaza Records, Mossy Frog, Geometrical Lullaby, though there's some controversy between labels like not shipping, but it's if you'd run a label, you would know that shipping orders is not easy, and
Yeah.
sometimes there are tons of delays. But that's running any label. Business casual, always solid releases, solid. I mean, John's Obli. I'm gonna just say John because I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but Christ is an absolute powerhouse of the scene. He has my utmost respect and
Yeah.
admiration. 100% electronica, though there is always going to be a slight bit of controversy.
Yeah.
Still an amazing quality label that outputs nothing but 100% at this point. They have not released a single release that I'd say would be low quality. Everything
Yeah.
is just always consistent with them.
So let's go back to you. Hi, you are VANGOE. Your music is really great. There isn't nearly as much like breakcore as I would like to see or like jungle influences in Vapor. I like this quite a bit, and it's
Mhm.
neat to see them kind of appear and kind of manifest in the scene. And I think every release so far that you've released has really like stuck to that, I want to say. Am I right?
Mhm. Yeah. Well, breakcore is slowly bleeding within the scene. I have quite a few fellow artists that I'm friends with within the scene that are exclusively breakcore artists,
Yeah.
and it's kind of like as I said before, vaporwave is pretty much like a hodgepodge of multiple different genres blending into the single internet subculture soup. Yeah, I've definitely been implementing a lot of breakbeat esque sounds into my music. I've drawn a lot of inspiration from Mesh and
Mhm.
their use of breakbeats and Esprit, of course, and various other artists like my friends Simple Syrup and Ahero. They have constantly like we've always been bouncing demos off of each other. We've constantly just been inspiring each other, and they're just such great friends to work with in the scene. And yeah, I'm constantly drawing inspiration from the scene. As per Soft Replica's
Mhm.
amazing release, Only Ever in Dreams. Just absolutely stunning soundscapes that have been inspiring me as of late. Patch Notes, Golden Hour, another phenomenal release that was
Mhm.
under Pacific Plaza. So I'm overall I'm inspired by a lot of things, but the thing that I've been most inspired by are my friends within the community because they're all just so talented. It just rubs off of me. It's honestly it's more of like a family than anything. Like it's
Yeah.
kind of the more cliche thing to say, but I really do feel really close with my friends in the vaporwave scene.
Your first release was a single called Creepwave 3000. Back in
Yes,
July
yes.
2020.
That was the first foray into Van Gogh. I didn't even know what the project was going to be at that point, but you can definitely it's definitely different from what I've been releasing per my debut, but it's more or less I've had a long history on SoundCloud of just like messing around. I've been making music ever since like 2016,
Mhm.
and that was kind of the crossing through point of me taking music seriously. I was like, you can pretty much like hear different aspects of what I was planning on doing with my releases, but it's still totally different and more of like a modern pop-ish sound, a la the 808s and trap hats. But at the same time, you see the elements of Loser's Landslide through the sampling of like Memphis-esque rap vocals into an instrumental. So that was my first foray into Van Gogh. But as I was making more and more demos, because I was listening to 100% electronica like on repeat for a year or two, you can tell I'm going more of into a shift of analog-esque instrumentals and vocal performances with like heavy lyrics and with the goal of invoking emotion or nostalgia in a way.
There was a gap from I'm not putting you on blast right now. There was a
Mm-hmm.
gap from
Mm-hmm.
July 2020, I think, to April 2021 between your first single and your second single, which is like an enormous,
Mm-hmm.
not putting you on
Yeah.
blast, but any comments on that at all? Or
Yeah.
because obviously during that time, like you're still like working on things and figuring out your sound, just listening to music, training your ear
Yeah.
and practicing, and that's a
Exactly.
huge gap though.
That was a fairly big gap. Not intentional at all because I released that single and then I had no idea what I was going to do after that. But over time, I was slowly developing this new sound and slowly accumulating demos to the point where I was like, okay, this is an album now. Just Like You was probably one of it was probably the third or fourth song that I worked on. But it was what I thought was the most complete of the demos and what would be like best as a single. And I think it was a good idea to drip feed that because that's probably one of my favorite songs that
Mhm.
I've released. And it's the most full, in my opinion, and it's a lot of people's favorite. And I think that with my future releases, I'm probably going to be releasing more singles that are leading up to a bigger project because as per now with my projects, I really have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm more or less making a bunch of demos and splitting them up into three projects instead of one project so
Okay.
that they're more sonically cohesive because I get into certain moods. Like I can be like, okay, I want to make a breakbeat jungle track mood,
Okay.
and then there's the I'm depressed and want to be an emo boy and make a sad song mood. Um, so yeah, there's always going to be different types of sounds. With my next release, it is going to be a charity release. It's going to be a 6-track classic vapor EP, and I'm very excited to talk more about that because that is going to be featuring a few artists that I've been wanting to work with in the scene that are very talented, and a lot more of that is going to be explained in the
Yeah.
future because I'm very slow at making music. um, that's why another reason why that gap was so long. I'm a very slow music maker, so will be announced once they're complete. Because I've learned from a few of my friends that if you announce something and it's not complete yet, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. So that's kind of what I'm doing with music currently.
I want to talk about Loser's Landslide a little more in depth, like track by track, to an extent, however much you'd
Mhm.
like to. But just
Mhm.
before that, I know you just made the Mossy Frog tape. Another like charity release, I believe. All the proceeds from that are going to go to NAMI, which is a really
Mhm.
wonderful, fantastic organization. That's the national what's their they're the
They're the
National
mental
Alliance
health. Yeah.
National Alliance on Mental Health, thank you. Or mental illness. I'm so sorry. But yeah, what other like compilations or things have you like gotten tracks on or
Yeah, other than the Mossy Frog release, which was an amazing, amazing release, so many talented artists on that one. I'm going to be a part of the Pause and Reflect music compilation. I need to look up if that has released yet. I'm my apologies. Um,
congrats regardless?
but yes, I'm going to be a part of the Pause and Reflect music compilation, which is going to be releasing sometime in the near future.
Cool.
And uh, a track just dropped, a remix I did with Patch Notes on Golden Hour Deluxe. That was the Iridescence remix. And I'm going to be on another deluxe edition of a friend's album. It hasn't really been announced yet, so I can't really say too much about that. But
Okay.
yes, a lot of new music coming, and a lot of remixes.
Mhm.
But as those remixes slowly drop, expect more because more is coming.
Alrighty.
I've been sitting on a lot of music for a very long time, but stuff is coming.
Good. So Loser's Landslide in particular, again, just like an awesome release. If you'd like, we can talk about like different tracks. And as we do that, we'll kind of like blend in sounds from the album, I think. The same with that Only Ever in Dreams by Soft Replica. Again, like also released pretty recently,
Mhm.
has like a strong. I told him during the interview that I did with him that like the first moments of his album to me like are the sound of Soft Replica. You know what I mean?
Yes,
Like
yes,
those like
that's
descending
true.
pad chords, you know?
Yep.
And for me that's why like that's when I hear like Van Gogh's name, I hear like the opening kind of the opening moments of First Love. That's like the Van Gogh sound, if that makes any
Mhm.
sense.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, Lucia's Landslide, awesome album released I think back in February, earlier this year, am I right?
Exactly.
Talk about that a bit if you don't mind.
So, Loser's Landslide, which released February of this year, it was a journey for sure. It took around 2 years to make. It all started and is inspired. This is probably some of the most corny stuff you'll hear, but like a lot of good and bad albums, is inspired by a breakup. When you first listen to the album,
Yeah.
as you can see, it starts with the first love track, and as you can sonically hear from the track, that it is probably what some of my friends have called me George Clooney. Um, it has a lot of inspiration from George Clanton. And when I was in the early days of making that track, I was experimenting on the digital VST known as Imposter 2.
Okay.
And as I was shuffling through the presets, I heard the one and only George Clanton orbital chord, and I hit one button of my keyboard, and it was an instant George Clanton song, and I was like, "Holy! I have to use this at least once." And I did in First Love,
Mhm.
which yeah, it's the opener of the album, and it is one of my favorite ones. I'm gonna say this about a lot of the songs because a lot of them are my favorite ones. But then you transition into the track When You Stay. which is more, it kind of tones back. The intro is very energetic in First Love, and then it kind of brings back the energy into an ambient breakbeat track.
The longest track on the album, I want to let everyone know, by the way.
The longest track on the album, 4
Right.
minutes and 40 seconds.
Yeah.
And it has very washed out and distant reverby vocals. And the track is pretty much when you're in a relationship and you are like in a stage with someone, you're in the honeymoon stage, and they're staying with you, and you're experiencing emotions with this person. And yeah, it's pretty much the honeymoon period of a relationship. And the intensity of the emotion is thrusted forward with the break beats and the sample that I interjected into this song. And a lot of the samples that I interjected into the songs were pretty much thrown onto the tracks afterwards. But as I'll explain later, with Born to Lose, that was the one track that was formed around a sample. But you can also hear some more Impostor 2 chord synths in that track. It vaguely sounds like one of the synths from Warm Spot, but not 100% certain. But it is the Impostor 2 is the George Clanton synth. So then that goes into the next track, Landslide. Is when a relationship is starting to reach its landslide into an abyss and things are starting to go wrong. It's probably like kind of it's more or less the emotional transition from the peak to the lows, but it's probably one of the most happiest sounding tracks of the album, with the steel pan drums and the gated pad. But that then goes into one of the more emotionally charged tracks, which is Paradise Lost. Which is inspired by Paradise Lost, the tale and odyssey of Satan being kicked out of heaven and dragged into hell. And that is precisely what it's about. It is about losing something that is valuable and something that you center your entire life around, and you pretty much lose it. And it's fairly straightforward with the lyrics. This is the one explicit song on the album, so keep it away from the kiddos. But then that leads into probably one of the most energetic tracks on the album, which is Come In. Come In is named after the jungle sample that I use in the track, which is also in When You Stay, which is the come in sample. The very famous jungle sample. Almost the entirety of this album was formulated off of a jungle pack I downloaded on some weird 2001 looking website with no secure SSH protection, so I probably got a virus. But yeah, that's where a lot of the sounds and pads and effects are coming from on this album. And that's another reason why it sounds more or less cohesive in a way. A lot of these tracks were more or less just me experimenting and finding a sound, and I didn't even realize that I had an album on my hands. But when I finally came to Just Like You, when I made that track, I was like, wow, I actually have a 12 track, 10 track album on my hands. So then we come into Feel It, which is an emotional abyss, yet it feels like an emotional apex at the same time.
Yeah, I said I wouldn't go. Yeah, I said I would be out there. And you said you wouldn't go. Yeah, I know you're out there somewhere. And you know I wouldn't show. Yeah, I know that you know nothing. Can I go?
And this song is purely about feeling intense emotion. And it is about feeling an intense emotion and sensation of longing and of being left behind. And it is kind of more or less calling out to the world. And should I tell them that I feel that I have something when I have nothing? And that's the emotional message behind the song. I'm also one to not really want one single solidified meaning behind a song, because whenever you listen through a project in full, you can have your own personal experience that no one else can have, and it can mean so much more to you than what it means to me. But that then goes into another emotional low end of the debut, which is Fairgrounds. And this is a song about being betrayed, in the fairly straightforward lyrics. And my good friend from Arizona played a backing guitar on this track, and they did a phenomenal job. And then that kind of blends into a beat switch. I call this one song the Drake instrumental song, because it does kind of go into like a Drake breakdown at the end. But some of my friends have called this the standout track in Loser's Landslide, and I can agree with it because the production is fairly good. But I don't really think, looking back on it, I don't really think the lyrics carry that big of an emotional weight, because they are fairly straightforward. But then that emotional apex of that song goes back into Born to Lose, which is, it is a very heavy song, but also at the same time, it is very upbeat and happy. And this is the one track that I formed around the sample that I got from YouTube, which was a song with a similar name, different spelling, "Born to Lose" by DJ Zerk. It's a deep cut sample that was also featured in a Drake song that I didn't even know, but I heard it at the repair shop, and I was like, "What the hell? I sampled this." Hope I don't get copyright stricken by Drake.
Yeah.
But yeah, this song is about losing and being okay with it and accepting loss as a natural part of life. It is kind of bringing up the emotional feelings of the debut from the deep, dark abyss back up to an emotional apex of happiness. It's kind of like I describe the concept of this album of like a wave, like a just it's just like a sine wave. It goes up, down, and goes back up again. And then Just Like You, which is this one of the singles that I dropped before I released this project. Is another very emotional and hypnagogic in nature song, very dreamy, very big. And it is about adapting the same characteristics of someone that has damaged you or someone that you don't like, and someone that you don't like but you used to like, which was expressed in the I like you but I'm just like you portion of the song. Yeah, it's just a very big and grandiose track. Just kind of like feel it in a way. And that is probably one of my favorite tracks because it's very cohesive and big. And then that transitions to the two collabs I did with Simple Syrup on this album. The first one was Move On. And this was probably one of the craziest collaborative experiences that I've had with an artist, because I sent him a like 15-30 second loop of a vocal sample I manipulated into a way to create a melody, and that served as the meat and potatoes of the track, the bass of the track. And then I layered it with a couple drum tracks. I sent this to him, and then around a couple months later, he sent me an entire song based off that little small 15-30 second clip I sent him, and I was just instantly blown away.
Yep.
And then he was like, "Yeah, just do some vocals on this, and then it's done." And I was like, "You are a genius." Yeah, if you ever listen to Simple Syrup's Make Me Float, you can tell that he is an actual genius when it comes to making music, because he not only samples pretty much everything, but he pretty much samples everything off of YouTube videos, which blows my mind just with how quality and consistent he is. So then I threw on the vocal tracking and added a few small things here and there, and that was Move On. And then we go to Fantasy 2, which is the remix of Fantasy. I was gonna release this as a single, but I felt like 11 was a weird number, so I asked him permission to put this on the track, and he was like, "Go ahead." And Simple Syrup is just an amazing friend and person to work with. I went on tour with him and Ahero last summer, and that was just an amazing experience. And so I pretty much did a house breakbeat remix of Fantasy, and sampled Frou Frou's Let Go, which is probably one of the most sampled artists of the 21st century and has been sampled to death. But I thought, what wouldn't hurt of sampling them one more time? But that was Fantasy 2, an amazing track. Love it to death. And Then there's Take It. Which was actually the first song I ever made for this project.
Okay.
As a lot of this album was self-reflection and meditation, and an output and an outlet of grief in a way. Take It was the first song, and I just had a random inspiration from the great muse while I was out on a bike ride in the middle of fall when the leaves were still falling. And this was the first song I ever made for the album. I had no idea that it was going to be part of an album, but yeah, you can tell from the the trademark lo-fi drums that are pretty much on every lo-fi chill beats to study/relax to song. But that was the first track I ever made seriously for VANGOE, and it is very catchy. It's probably one of my catchiest songs, even though it's one of the most simplest. Yeah, a lot of people like that song, and a lot of people say it gets stuck in their head. Gets stuck in my head sometimes. But yeah, that pretty much is a run throughout the album, which is Loser's Landslide. And if there was one message to take away from it, I'd probably say that sometimes it's okay to be a loser, and sometimes you got to have your own little landslide to learn about certain things and reflect on yourself and learn how to cope through traumatic and negative events.
Very cool. So when people try to find your music online, if you're listening right now in your car or online, VANGOE, is it spelled always with like a 4 for the A?
So
can you search VANGOE, or do you have to type V4?
So here's a little bit of the VANGOE lore here.
Okay.
So I started off as Van Gogh, spelled strange and different from the painter Vincent Van Gogh, obviously, but it was spelled VANGOE. And I did quite a bit of research, but turns out there was a South Asian artist under the same name. And I thought, okay, that's no big deal. When it turns out they have millions upon millions of views.
Okay.
And it was getting so bad to the point where our analytics were getting mixed up together.
Okay.
So some of their songs were showing up on my Spotify and iTunes page. And when you looked up VANGOE, when you clicked their links, it redirected to my links. So there was a bit of a kerfuffle there. So I just decided to change the A in the name to a 4. And it messed up quite a bit of things, as any artist knows. If you are rebranding, it pretty much destroys your streaming platforms for like a month. So it had to, transfer all of my streaming data and metadata onto the new account and profile, and it took quite a while for iTunes to update. But yeah, I'm now known as VANGOE. Some people are like V4 and Joey, like how am I supposed to pronounce this thing? But you just pronounce the 4 as an A, so it's just VANGOE.
I like V4 and Joey too. That's nice.
V4 and Joey, it's all up to interpretation. But yeah, you can find my platforms by just typing V4 and GOE. And
you guys can also look up just like Loser's Landslide. If you're listening right now online, that's a straightforward way to find that. The artist name right away as well. Like some artists like Derivative, for example, I talk to him a lot, and like it's very hard to look up his name on Bandcamp because he has like a Japanese character after it. So I have to look up like an album title actually by him to even pull up his page, because Bandcamp doesn't like searching his name unless you use the Japanese character, and I don't have a Japanese keyboard. So
Exactly. That is the one pain of being in the vapor scene, because there are quite a few artists and
yeah, like
albums with completely Japanese characters.
yeah,
They're all really good, but you
like
just have to like search up you have to be a Google wizard pretty much.
yeah. Good luck googling like an Asutenki album because his name is entirely like in Japanese. Many others, as well, but
Mhm.
I think you can with his name at this point. But
Yeah.
yeah. I guess two last questions. You have toured in person. You've done like in-person stuff. I know
Mhm.
there's a couple shows, a couple scenes are trying to build up. Obviously, Ronnie from Vapor is Vapor Space, Vapor, Ronnie from Vapor.
Yep, Vaporspace STL, you got it.
That's it. Okay, okay. So he's trying to build up that scene, and I
Mhm.
think he's doing a pretty good job of that. I know New
Yeah.
Orleans is building up with Poison Dart Frog and a couple others. And I think you played in Baltimore pretty recently, I saw.
Yes, locally there are quite a few labels like First Class Collective and quite a few artists that are, in the Northern Virginia DMV, Baltimore, Maryland, DC, Virginia area. And so we are pretty much just trying to cultivate an in-person scene, because vaporwave is so spread out since it's a
Yeah,
global phenomena. It's on the internet and there's fan bases around the world. But when you are playing locally, that is a totally different thing. And a lot of bands have local roots and are supported by their local communities. So playing live shows is a lot easier for them. But when you are an internet-based artist, it is quite hard to get live shows going, especially in a local area. But we've been throwing more and more local shows. The first real show that me, Ahero, and Simple Syrup threw was the Vaporwave Zero show in Chicago in December of 2021. And then that led on to the Circuit Zero East Coast Midwest tour, which consisted of Rhode Island, Philadelphia, DC, Lexington, Kentucky, Columbus, Ohio, and then St. Louis and Chicago. And that was quite a tour, quite an arduous tour, but also an amazing experience, because I got to hang out with three of my most favorite people in the scene.
yeah.
Pretty much every day. I got to hang out with Be Careful, Simple Syrup, Ahero, um, and Skeleton Lipstick and Rail, Will Wade, who is a part of iClick, and just everyone in the scene that I get to interact with on a daily basis, not daily basis, but event basis is just, they're all amazing people. So after that tour, we pretty much have been just doing more local shows. Ahero and Soul Surfer 1999 are having a show in Chicago on the 28th. Just recently, Be Careful helped me book a show locally in the Arlington area, and that was a really amazing show. Quite a few people turned up, and it was just everyone playing was really cool, and they were all super talented. So yeah, I feel like local vaporwave artists should, strive to cultivate their local internet music scenes. Ronnie from Vaporspace is doing an amazing job, as you said before, and with his post econ event at Purgatory, that was amazing. Midwest Collective is doing an amazing job. At Poison Dart Frog, as you said, and then Pacific Plaza doing events on the East Coast, and the obvious elephant in the room, 100p doing tours, and Electronicon, they're doing their own thing. So I definitely want to see more grassroots DIY vaporwave shows coming across globally.
I'm up here in Maine, which is maybe the smallest community in America, aside from like, I don't know, Delaware, in terms of states trying to build like local music scenes, I want to say. I'm from the Delmarva area, so I could say that I can throw some shade at Delaware a little bit. But please come to Maine too. Like whoever's listening in, like just bring me music. Otherwise, I will drive back down to Brooklyn. Like real life stuff kept me from coming to Baltimore for your show. I kept posting on Twitter a couple of times that I really wanted to, but yeah, in the future I'll head down there though.
Oh yeah, no. I might just have to come up to Maine and throw a little party in Maine. We gotta do it.
I work at a venue. It's a really good one too, actually. It's a nonprofit venue, but Yeah, you're always welcome though, and the whole crew. I've played Ahero like constantly on the show, like Simple Syrup. These are
They're
like
amazing. They're amazing.
yeah, like the three of you and many others, and Skeleton Lipstick. Be careful, like very much like part of like the 2010 to current like core new artists that are like really carrying the scenes that they're touching, that they're parts of, and influencing a lot of people, I think. So consistently good releases. That's an awesome. That's a show I got to see live. You know. So the next econ, I have to see you guys, at least some of you or all of you, perform as part of the tape swap the day before like the main event, if that's possible, or at least one of like these new up and comers, including yourself, play like one of these side stages. You know what I mean, or the main stage. You know, play alongside, Vitesse or whoever.
You know,
But I want to see more of that
it's
representation of this new blood. You know.
yeah, yeah. It's always been a pipe dream of mine to play econ. I don't think it's ever gonna happen, unless I like get some insane TikTok cloud or something. But
But
yeah,
I
I
mean,
would
even
most definitely play a tape swap.
there's tape swap.
I was pretty much I was there for pretty much the entire tape swap. Just you had to support my friends playing. iClick was amazing. Frank Jeffsy had an amazing DJ set. Everyone playing was super talented.
We have the tape swap, we have the main event, and then I think last second there was like the day after show, I want to say, that was
Yeah.
planned, not late like in a bad way, but late like I think people really wanted to see that happen, to see some more voices. And like I don't think Discoholic played, but who people played the next day, like some pretty big names, and I think that was kind of last minute. But I'm hoping that if econ happens like this coming August, if August is kind of the month where that takes place, that
Mhm.
I love the idea of it being like a 2 to 3 day, multi-day series of events that really let people interact with the scene, with each other, and to see different people like in many different contexts. I want to host like a trivia contest, which sounds stupid, but I just want to like eat food, drink beer, like do like anime and like vapor and like weird music trivia kind of stuff. I think that'd be kind of interesting too, as well.
No,
Rand,
that definitely has to be a thing.
I've
At
talked about
least
that. Yeah.
when I was in New York, I kind of planned it as like a week long thing, and there
Okay.
were quite a few people that were doing that. So I really feel like, and this is probably like this might be unfounded, but I heard from someone that originally econ was supposed to be a multi-day event, and I could definitely see that happening if there were to be like more sponsorships for the events. But yeah, the community definitely will probably continue to throw pre and post econ events. Um,
That's my feeling for it. And like we're a bunch of nerds. We're gonna throw our money at this. The way that like big conventions will like draw money the same way. I really think that if this is like I really think that tape swap plus the next day like really helped
mhm.
last year, or this year rather. It's still 2022, but like helps to build a foundation for what I want this to see in the future. Like 2 to 3 days, like a great I don't know, like a bonner, like a multi-day, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, that definitely should be a thing.
Multi-day,
And
yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, like the tape swap and econ were probably like the best couple days of my life.
Yep, yep.
I would like just being in the tape swap, I was just in awe. I was in awe with how many people were there. It was
Yeah.
literally the entire scene in a way. They were all there, and Dan Mason posted a picture of the tape swap with everyone there, and I was accidentally looking directly at his camera. It looks like some serial killer stuff, but
Yes.
it was an amazing picture, and it just shows like how many people were there. It got to the point where nearby businesses were getting mad at us by like having people in front of their businesses.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but it was just such an amazing event. Like even like 100p was there, George was there, Vitesse was there, FM
Desert Sand
Skyline,
showed up.
Desert Sand showed up,
Yeah.
Equip was there, everyone was there.
I
Everyone
sat
was
I
there.
sat with Chase. I sat with Mossy Frog Tape, selling tapes with him and helping out a little bit. But like we sat next to Limousine for like I think 2 hours he had a table for, and like I'm just like, okay, this guy's like a legend. I'm just casually sitting next to Limousine, and like Dennis comes over and they're talking Pokemon. Dennis, who runs like Geometric Lullaby. Like it was just
It's insane.
really,
It was
really insane.
it was like a lucid dream. Like it did not feel real being there.
Yeah,
Uh
it's like a post-death scene like in like a movie, and it's like every person you've ever
yeah.
killed is there except instead of that, it's just every single.
Every single soul you've interacted with on Twitter is there. Yeah.
That's pretty special. And then Disco Holic with with the disco ball head. Like
He was
there's so much
awesome.
fun.
Unfortunately, he got COVID. He couldn't go to the econ, but
I was thinking about saying that just now, but it sucks for him though.
he's an awesome individual, though. When I played
He's
my
right
show
up in
in
my face,
Arlington
and I
with
didn't
him,
get COVID, so I'm pretty happy.
yeah, yeah.
The cameras were there that were filming the documentary that's coming out, I think at some point. I think it's called Nobody Here, the story of
No,
April.
nobody's here. Yeah.
Nobody's here. Yeah. So Pat Chennington. That was very,
It was awesome, man. Like
yeah,
I
he
interacted with
me
Pad quite a bit at
too.
econ. I got to see him at the tape swap, and he was right there next to me during the entire DDS mosh pit.
Awesome.
He like turned around a few times, was like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah." That was probably the most loving mosh pit I've ever been in. Most caring mosh pit. Like every time someone fell back, like we instantly like pick them up. But it was surprisingly gentle, but also like just like everyone was having the time of their lives.
Yeah.
I got to talk with Frank Jeffsey quite a bit. He's such a loving and like bubbly character. I love him so much. Everyone I got to interact with, even you, like it was such an just amazing experience to meet everyone in person. It felt like a loving community. It really did.
The one big thing I really want to see, like, I would love to see Angel Mark Lloyd. I would love to see like Mindstream
Yes.
Memories pop up at one of the next ones.
Yes.
There's so many names in the scene. It's not like someone wasn't invited. It's more like there's
There was not enough space for the
Yeah.
tape swap. If they do the tape swap again, they should
Tape
probably
swap.
do it at that venue was nice. It had a nice little
Yeah.
outdoor area, but we definitely need a bigger space.
That's true.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Thanks again so much. This was amazing.
Yeah, this is an amazing opportunity.
I'm also gonna have you give me a guest mix. Have you worked on that, or do you know what's gonna be on that guest mix yet?
Yep, I've pretty much the majority of the songs picked out. I just need to put them all in a mix and export them out.
Cool. Before you do that, you want to like kind of introduce the mix in terms of like the sounds we're going to hear, the artists that we and it's not finalized quite yet, but you can, kind of introduce. You're going to have, I think, an unreleased song, I think you said.
Yep. I'm gonna have an unreleased song in there.
Very cool. But for your mix, what else are we going to kind of hear on there?
Hold on, let me just pull the mix up real quick.
I feel like so far every person I've asked has had like very varied answers, responses, mixes, influences. Been pretty cool.
Yeah, no, you've probably interviewed like quite a bit of people, and it's you
I think
get
it's
to
7 at this point. I want to do a couple more labels because labels is a lot of fun.
Yes.
But I think I've talked to like Mossy Frog Tapes, Seaside Bliss, which was good. Doki Doki Beats talked to, and I think Pacific Plaza. Obviously, I would love to talk to them, but I feel like I'm like a little fish, and they're like a huge name. But
No, not at all. They'd definitely be up for an interview.
I think maybe.
Thanks again for having me on. For my guest mix, I am having a blend of influences, unreleased tracks, and tracks I've released, while also showcasing friends and people I am inspired by every day in the scene, including Ahero, Simple Syrup, Soft Replica, and other artists such as Dan Mason.
Very cool. So thanks again so much.
Thank you so much for having me on.
For anyone listening in, again, my name is DJBC here at the station. I also make music as Brickmason, having a lot of fun with that. And right about now, you should hear this guest mix coming in, washing over my voice with these beautiful tunes. Hope you enjoy this mix for 30 minutes, and then I'll come back in again. Take care.